So, hi everyone, my name is Luca. I'm here actually to replace my colleague Dougal, who couldn't make it, unfortunately. But I'll try to deliver his presentation anyway to my best effort. So I'm a software engineer at Babylon. I've been at Babylon for about 1 year, a bit more than 1 year, and that's pretty much the same experience I have with Camunda. Actually, I can use the clicker. Babylon Health. So a couple of words about what we do at Babylon. The main product of Babylon is basically this video consultation technology, which instead of booking an appointment with your GP and then going to the physical appointment after a couple of weeks, you can just have a call after a couple of hours, usually. And then there is all this chatbot and AI technology and health monitor and many other tools, but that's not in the scope of this presentation. What is in the scope of this presentation, however, is how we use Camunda. And we'll also talk about what we found Camunda really made our life easier, so where we found Camunda very helpful, and also what Camunda is not so good at. And I would like to say that's really specific to our domain and the way we do things. So I would like to start with a quick survey. Who has used Camunda before? Okay, most of the people. Who has seen a BPMN file? Pretty much the same people. Who has written a BPMN file? A bit less, okay. That's fine. So how does Babylon use Camunda? The name of this presentation is Seatbelts on a Rocket Ship. And the reason for that is because our CEO, Ali, likes to refer to Babylon as a rocket ship. And the reason for that is because when I joined 1 year ago, we were just a bit less than 600 people, and now we are a bit more than 1,500. So we more than doubled in 1 year, and because we're operating in healthcare, we have a huge responsibility, and we need these seat belts, which are workflows for us, and we need to ensure that the safety is a constant. Babylon runs the 5th largest NHS practice, I think. It should be the 5th in the UK, so lots of patients. And medical pathways are very complicated. They are complicated for a good reason, I would say. When we are talking about health management, it's good to have some proper processes in place. So we try managing them with spreadsheets. Actually, they work quite well until we had, I don't know, as long as you have 100 consultations a week, that's absolutely fine. The problem is when you start having hundreds of consultations every single day. So the problem with that is that we're talking about, again, healthcare. We have the people life in our hands to some extent, but if people get lost in the process, their life could potentially be a risk. So we need to have a system to make sure that that doesn't happen. So the people, our main users of workflows of Camunda are clinical operations people that we refer as cleanups. They basically use workflows to manage the interactions between themselves and the patients or the hospitals, or System 1. System 1 is, to give some context, the system used by NHS to store all the patient records. But we'll get into that in a second. So these are our users, and we need to make sure that we can scale their team while preserving this safety. So we can start with an example. The example that we have is a letter. So when does a letter get triggered? For a number of reasons, a doctor may send a letter to a different practice or may refer you to another specialist, another consultant. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, there are plenty of human tasks. We're not using many of the automated tasks. Not yet. We'll see that in a second. So to briefly go through this, we start on the top flow. You draft the letter, and then you may want to review that, and then there is a loop in which you rewrite and review the letter until everyone is happy with it, and then you print, post it, and upload it to System 1. In the flow below, instead, we have this med3. Med3 is like a note, so it just needs to be drafted and printed, and then you just post it to the patient. What cleanup sees in all this is a form, slightly styled from Camunda. So there are some comments. We actually have all this data, which is stored in Camunda variables, which is not great, but that's what we have at the moment. This is fake data, by the way. And then what is in the interaction like? You have these people with this screen, all the workflows, and then they have system one in background. So they get to this task, they claim it, and there is this checkbox. I confirm that I have reviewed the letter in system one. So they switch screen, they go on the other system, they do the stuff, they come back, they complete the task, and they probably pick up another one. This is not easy. It's not the easiest thing to do all day, but it's safe because we managed to keep track every single interaction that needs to happen between the users, so our cleanups people, and in this case system one, but sometimes patients or hospitals to get the results back. However, we recently started automating things because we have all these amazing integrations that we can use, and we started recently exploring robot tasks. This is actually a product that our RPA team is using. It's called Blue Prism. So this is like a workflow, some kind of workflow that instead manages the interactions with the laptop. So like press on this button and then paste the content of the letter there and do this and do that. So the bottom, I can go back. So this thing at the bottom, which is very easy and clean, we decided to complicate a little bit. So we added this external task controller in which basically the robot takes the tasks that are available there from the queue, it prints the letter because, when you have 50 letters every day, it's 50 times you have to go to the printer, log in, and print the things, and then go back and do the things. So this way we can do them in a batch. And the important thing is that we are, again, with safety in mind, we have to catch all the errors, and if there is any problem with the robot, we have to action these tasks manually. There are some other things that are coming soon. Actually, today we're planning to get out this V2 API. This basically sits on top of the V1 API that was initially designed to basically interact and trigger the current clinical workflows. We actually plan to expand to other areas of the business, so we want to have an API that can be used all around the business and is not too specific to clinical workflows. Another thing, member tasks. Members, some terminology, members are patients for some reason. And currently in the case, so let's take an example of a blood test. A blood test requires the patient to be contacted in order to get his preference about what clinic where to get the blood test. So what's happening at the moment is that we have a human in cleanups calling the patient and asking where do you want to have the appointment. What we would like to do instead is using, for instance, the application and having a task there that needs to be actioned by the users. Why not? And another thing is member-centric UI. So currently we're using the out-of-the-box Camunda task list that you've seen before during the demo, which was great to get started. But the idea of having a member-centric UI is that you can have all the patient data, which is not in Camunda variable, hopefully, nicely displayed on a page, as well as all the patient's record from the past, all the past workflows. So it's like building an internal tool where you can see all the internal records without switching to system one every time. Okay, enough of that. what Camunda is good at. Parsing XML, I believe this is a big one together with, understanding BPMN. So we're using Camunda, we're using workflows to deliver business value, which can immediately be seen. If we were to create our own XML builder and try to understand all the BPMN standards or design our own standard, probably in the past year we would still be working on the tool itself without providing any value to the business. So I believe this is great. Camunda just does the right thing at the right time. So if I put a timer in the BPMN and I say expire after 5 days, I can trust the fact that after 5 days, the next task will be executed. So that requires much less testing on our side because we can trust it. We also found useful tenancy. So in Babylon, we are of course, present in many countries with different providers. And we have different concepts of tenancy. Actually, there's a new one that is coming out soon. And what we're doing at the moment, we are mapping the concept of Babylon tenancy with the Camunda tenancy, which is great because we had, to give an example, this requirement. We were live in London. We were about to go live in Birmingham. And we need to have data separation. So cleanups in London should not be able to see the clinical records of people in Birmingham. So we need to have this data separation, and this is just out of the box. It was great, really quick to set it up. Yeah. And documentation, we found that very useful. I think it just saves a lot of time. And when it's not in the documentation, you have the community forums, lots of questions, many problems already asked. And if that is still not enough, in the case of the enterprise version, we have a very helpful support staff. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you get the support, you ask, you have a problem, you describe the problems, and you have 3 questions, and then only the last one gets answered. That's very annoying. Maybe after 3 days, that's very annoying. This is not the case. I actually feel that when I ask a question, I provide some context, and all the questions get answered properly and within a very good SLA. So that was very good. Now, what Camunda is not so good at? Again, as I said before, we might be doing lots of mistakes. We might not be doing things as they are meant to be done. I also need to, I need to be honest, it's a bit technical, but I'll try to be as more high level as possible so that everyone can understand. And the first one is getting stuff, getting data. So SEV23, for those who use Jira, they may recognize that's a Jira ticket. That's the actually 23rd site incident, an incident in production that we had about this time last year. And it looked like this. This is basically the CPU utilization of our database. So our database basically was a bit high on CPU, but not too bad until we got to this week. More people, the adoption was going up, and during daytime, it was basically all the time 200% utilization. And the effect of that was that requests were timing out after 15 seconds. So imagine you're using the task list, and for every button you click, you have to wait 15 seconds for the next page to come up. That's basically unusable. So, this was the solution. You see that checkbox there, auto-refresh? We just removed it for all the filters. So the filters you have on the left-hand side have, by default, an auto-refresh functionality. What that caused, so there were about 20 people working at, 20 cleanups people working at any time during the day. I'd say around 20. And you say, yeah, 20 people, the filter is refreshed every 5 seconds. That's fine. 100 requests every every 5 seconds. That's all right. The problem is that we started shadowing them after we found out this problem because we need to understand what is actually going on their side. What we noticed is that they action a task, and then they leave it there, and they open another task, and they start working on that, and then on another task. And what happens is that by the end of the day, they have 30 tabs open. And so these 20 people actually are, have 600 background tasks running that every 5 seconds try to refresh. And that was mainly the reason that caused that problem. Here there is an SQL query that I don't expect anyone to understand, but what I want to say is that we tried to optimize it. There was no success, so we just left it as it is. It's also fair to say that on our side we're using a version of the database which is not ideal. It's quite outdated, but we're still relying on infrastructure, and they have loads of priorities, and this one may not be the first one. So as part of this problem, we're not using the Camunda endpoints. We're not getting the data directly from Camunda. We are developing our own way of getting the data. So in the case of showing the health record, like the health records internally, we need to search the workflows by a variable, and we have developed our own optimized native query to do that because it's fine. Camunda is an out-of-the-box tool that should work for any kind of business case, and we have a really specific one. However, this is bad. There is a really nice Java API. We would like to use it, but we are using it. Just sometimes it's better to use our own. Another problem that we had in the past is with debugging. And again, I apologize if this is a bit technical for some of you, but I think this arose as when we were trying to identify the cause of the problem for the site incident I described before. We were trying to go from the REST endpoint, from the moment you try to get the data, down to the database query. So actually what was happening in the database, why the database had this super high utilization. And it was not just easy, not easy as expected, I would say. Usually, you have a controller, service, couple of components, repository, you get the SQL. In this case, I started debugging, went down a bit, I step into that function, and I get to a place in which I think I got to the database, and then I found this my Batis. I don't know if technical people have come across this before, but I haven't. And the problem with it is that this is what it looks like inside. So the database query is like this. This is actually one screenshot. There are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and done. So that is basically what is executed to get a task given some criteria. So yeah, we found that a bit difficult to do, but again, we're using our own queries now, so it's fine. And lastly, I would like to talk about workforce management. So we have these cleanups people. There are about 50 of them, around 20 working at any given time during the day or night. And there are some leaders of the team who want to get some data, some insights, and they also want to understand if there is some bottleneck in the process. And by the time we got to the solution, also Optimize, I think, got this feature, but we're not quite there yet, mainly because of infrastructure, to be honest. So we developed our own tool. This is simple web page we have included in the basic application, in the task list. And we can see, in this case, the workflow, the total number of instances, and the status of them, so whether they're active, completed, or suspended, and then the age. We have a similar one for tasks. And another interesting one that we did, especially for workforce management, was a cockpit plugin. So you've seen cockpit before in the demo. Actually, I could mention this as one of the things I really liked. I definitely like the idea of task list and cockpit given out of the box, which really saved us a lot of time since after 1 year we're still using them. And I also like the idea of the plugins. This is actually really nice. So we basically have this screen inside cockpit, and we can see how many tasks are there and how many people are assigned to it. And this is, again, testing data. And if you are in that situation, you have 2 people assigned and 1,315 tasks. That's probably not optimal. So you might have to move someone in that group or hire some more people to do that. So this is our custom solution to the workforce problem management that hopefully we'll be able to tackle with Optimize as well. So a bit early, but let's go through what we've seen. How does Babylon use Camunda? Mainly to scale our team. We're scaling really fast, and we need to make sure that we don't get things lost in the cracks, especially patients who are sick. And we want to keep our patient members safe. Camunda, we found it really useful for dealing with the complexity of BPMN files, lots of stuff out of the box that really saved us time and allowed us to provide value from a few months after starting using it. It's a fully featured workflow management tool, and I add another one to this. There are loads of good reasons for you to use Camunda. And another one that just came to my mind is the fact that we're a technological company. In my team, we are 7 technical people and 1 product person. And you need to have some communication because there are engineers on one side and there are clinicians on the other. I think BPMN is actually one of the best ways to communicate, so to merge the 2 parts and have a good communication and understand what the business actually needs, because it's something that everyone can understand when they look at a diagram, and it's actually very easy to to have meaningful conversation with people who are not technical. Finally, what is Camunda not so good at? Getting stuff, debugging. So a hint here, I believe these are both technological things. We found it really useful and very customizable for our business perspective. And I would say we have a few minutes for questions, if everyone has any.